All right, cool, we're rolling. So typically what I do the very first day of school is I want you guys to get a chance to kind of meet each other and get to know each other a little bit. Not only that, but I want you guys to begin to know that these are the people you're going to discuss film with. So that way you can kind of get an idea of who's going to be able to help you out. Now, I teach the same thing for period 3, period 4, period 6, and period 7. So if you have other friends that are in those classes, they're getting the same material that you're getting. It's just a different group of people that are coming in and out throughout the day. So if you want to discuss stuff with them, cool, awesome. They're very good, valuable resources for you to do so. But anyways, I usually start off blank slide. And then what I'll do is I'll ask what's called a question of the day. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get that rolling over here. And so that question of the day isn't something that's going to be written down and you're going to turn into me and so on and so forth. I would normally actually set my timer for about 5 minutes. Today it's going to be about 3 minutes. And I'm going to give you a chance to discuss things with your group. So that way you guys can kind of talk about what it is that we're going to be discussing for the day. I'm assessing your knowledge ahead of time, so I know which parts of my PowerPoint and lecture to skip over and which parts to really go into detail on. So that's the reason why we typically tend to do this question right off the bat. If you want to know where your group is, this room is basically divided in half. Okay? So if you're over here on this side, these two computers and these two computers are group 1. These two computers and these back 3 computers are group number 2. Group number 3 is right here on the back bar, so all you guys get to hang out and talk with each other. Over here, these 3 computers and these 2 computers are group 4, and then these 2 computers and these 2 computers are group 5, and then y'all right in the middle here are group 6. So that way you guys can all chat and talk and so on and so forth. I'm cool with you bumping over, saying hi to someone and stuff as I'm talking. It's cool. It doesn't really interrupt me. If it becomes a problem and an interruption, that's when we'll start to have issues and stuff. But today's question of the day, the thing I want you guys to start thinking about and talking about and discussing with those people around you as we're waiting for the computers to log in. What is one of your favorite movies and why is it one of your favorites? What is one of your favorite movies and why is it one of your favorites? So I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to chat that out really quick. I'm going to play some music in the background, and then we'll kind of go from there. All right, sweet. Let's go ahead and come on back together, and then we'll kind of share out a little bit. So now what I'll typically do is I'll go around and I'll try and ask a couple of people because A, I'm trying to get to know y'all, and B, I want to kind of know where certain people sit. So if I get your name wrong, please tell me so that way I can make sure that I start to get it right. Remember, as you guys are logging in, you're opening up Google Drive so you can type out certain stuff and so on and so forth because some people might forget. I'm going to go start off with Natalie. Natalie, what's your favorite film and why? Okay. You don't have any favorite film that you kind of go back to over and over again? You're like, you know what? It's not the best film in the world, but it's my favorite.
Maybe The Lion King.
The Lion King? Which one, the new one or the animated one from '94? Okay, cool. Why?
It's
Okay. Interesting. Who are your favorite characters in The Lion King then? Are you more of a Nala fan or do you like Simba? Simba. So you really are drawn and attached to stories where the individual is learning kind of how to grow up and explore new lands on their own and kind of getting out there and stuff. Do you consider yourself to be kind of like an independent type person? Yeah, you do? Why?
Like me as a person.
Yeah, you as an individual, yeah.
Because I don't like people telling me what to do.
Cool, fantastic. You don't like people telling you what to do. Okay, cool, good. Let's go off with, let's try Evan. Evan, what's your favorite film, sir? Napoleon Dynamite, yes. Okay, cool. Why do you like Napoleon Dynamite?
I think a lot of parts of it are funny.
A lot of it are funny. Interesting. Do you watch typically a lot of quirky comedies? It's not like the stuff like Will Ferrell does, but with like weird, interesting characters?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. What about video games? Do you probably play video games with some of those individuals in there that kind of stand out? Like, what's your favorite video game? Team Fortress 2. Perfect. Fantastic, right? Okay. So you can start. Okay, cool. So hopefully you guys are starting to see a couple of things here that are coming along. Let's go with Chase. What's your favorite film, sir?
I don't really have one.
Don't have one that you just like you throw on and you're like, I love it?
No,
TV series? Do you even watch TV or anything or no? Or films? Really? What is it you do in your free time?
I either hang out with friends or just
Work out? So
watch TV.
do you watch the 30 by 30 specials on ESPN at all?
I mean, when I do watch TV, it's like football or something.
It's like football, it's like games and stuff? Okay. What I'm trying to get at here is there's a correlation between not only your favorite movie or your favorite type of film, but you as an individual. If you ever want to get to know someone or know an individual and know a lot about them without ever actually asking them a question like, hey, what do you like to do for a living, or what do your friends do, and so on and so forth, ask them what their favorite film is. Because chances are you'll be drawn to, or you'll figure out, the individuals will be drawn to, films that typically speak to them. There's some of you in here whose your favorite film is like the Fast and the Furious franchise. Right? Love it, okay? Right? Some people are like, yeah, fast cars, loose women, so on and so forth. It's great. But there's other people that really like it specifically because of the family aspect. Why? Because they come from a broken home where their family isn't really an actual family. And so what they do is they end up kind of adopting each other and creating their own niche family that's not necessarily blood related. And so when an individual like Paul Walker dies in the Fast and the Furious franchise, people feel really bad because it feels like they actually lost someone in their family. So right off the bat, if you want to know something about another individual, ask them what their favorite film is. Because I guarantee you, if it's Pineapple Express and they're not doing pot, it's very, very shocking to find that out. Okay. Conversely, if it is Pineapple Express, they probably are doing a lot of weed. Okay. Because it's something that they relate to. It's something they understand. So something else that you'll start to see is it's not just the same with films. It's the same with news, same with sports, same with all different facets, YouTube videos and so on and so forth. You're not going to go on YouTube and just be like, I'm going to search for a random video today and I wonder what's going to come up. You start down a specific path and you continue down that path finding more videos related to that initial vertex that you started out with, that vector point. Okay, get you going in the right direction. So before we really start to utilize cameras and utilize equipment, we really have to understand ourselves a little bit better. And once we start to understand ourselves a little bit better, the equipment kind of comes along with that. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on the history of film. And the reason why I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on the history of film and video is because I want you guys to know exactly where stuff started coming from. So the first place, where we first started out when it comes to film and video is we started with photographs. Okay, it starts with individual pictures. Once you have one singular image, you can start putting other singular images behind it. If you start making those pictures move really fast in front of a particular screen, speeding things up, speeding things up, speeding things up, speeding things up, it makes it look like they're almost moving. And so that's where we end up getting moving pictures, and that's where we end up getting films and video. Okay, so it actually starts with a singular photograph. The best way to get really started in film is by taking pictures. If you're in here and you don't have an Instagram account or some sort of camera phone in some way, shape, or form where you're not taking pictures, I would highly advise you to start doing so. Would you ever actually utilize it for film and video in this class? Maybe, maybe not. But it at least gets you started in putting pictures in front of other pictures before you start stringing stuff together and adding other components to it. Okay? Eventually, you move to something called rapid imaging. Okay? These eventually became flip books. Okay? So what people would do back in like the, I want to say, pre-1800s, you'd have a bunch of little pictures or images drawn on a book, and you would flip those pages really, really fast through, and it make it look like the person's dancing or moving up and down and so on and so forth. They're all individual pictures, images. They're just moving really fast in front of your face. And so that's what makes it look like it makes it appear that it's actually moving. Okay? Today, you guys know them as something a little bit different. Okay? Here's what you guys know them as today. It's not up there. Where is it? Where are you? Anyone know what this is? It's a GIF, right? It's a GIF, graphic interchangeable format. It's a bunch of individual pictures that are put together that are moving really, really fast and looping right in front of you. This is actually 5 separate pictures. It's of an Asian dude lying in the middle of the road, right on near a bike lane. And what he's doing is he's making the motion to make it appear as if he's pedaling. No sound attached, nothing else attached to it. 5 different images moving really, really quickly right in front of each other. Okay? Once people started figuring out that you could do this back in the 1800 time period, okay, they started to put together films. Okay? And once they started to put together films, they came up with something like this. Okay, we're going to go full screen. See if it actually plays. There it is. And we're done. And I'll play that again for you. And we're done. That's the oldest surviving film that we have right now. It's called the Roundhay Garden Scene from 1888. It is 2 seconds long, 17 frames, and all you'll see is individuals walking around in a circle. Bunch of different pictures put together. Actually, what's really funny is this individual died a week later. So that's the reason why the film was preserved back in 1888. But if that came out in 1888, we're now in 2019. That's only 131 years ago. This is still a pretty brand new technology that we're utilizing and we're stringing together. So we're still at the precipice of what we can actually do with this information. Okay? If you guys want to know what the first photograph looked like, I also have that for you as well. Okay? Here's what the first photograph looked like. Okay? Anyone know, or can you even tell what this even is? Yeah, right. Oh, an android. Yeah. Okay. Prison. Cool. Fair enough. Yeah, it is, because yeah, the title gives away a little bit. The title is "View from the Window at Le Gras." It's taken in France by a guy named Joseph Nicephore something. Frenchy French. I can't do it or say it that well. 1826. This was not printed out on actual film. This was light, individual dots. It either had light that hit it or light that didn't. So it was either white or black, and they were imprinted on this piece of tin. That tin was then scanned into a computer, and that's what you're seeing today. The actual tin itself, you would just see different. It almost looks like it's sunburned in there. You would see different shades in there of what you're seeing. If you take a look right here, you can actually see the bars of the window, or what appear to be a window that look to be opening up to overlook a city down below. And you can actually see that there's like a shadow from this tower over here. This is probably like a roadway, some trees and some other stuff here in the background. Can't really tell. Again, 1826, so this is almost 200 years ago. Photography has advanced quite nicely over the last 200 years. Okay, it used to be almost pointillism, where it was made up of a bunch of dots. Today, it's still made up of a bunch of dots. Those are called pixels. Okay, and you would be able to see those. But the difference is instead of black and white dots, today we're mixing red, green, and blue dots. And that's how you get the colors on the screen that are in front of you. Okay? So this is kind of where we start. We start with, where's my PowerPoint, or where's my thing? Here we go. We start with photographs in 1826, and then we have our first film come along about 62 years later, in 1888. Once we really start jumping into films, that's where things kind of start to take off. Now, the first film that I kind of showed you, it's the oldest film. It's not really technically the first film. The first film was 16 frames, and it was a bet between two gentlemen as to whether or not a horse would actually take its entire feet, or all 4 feet, off the ground as it was galloping. There were guys that were down at the track. They were watching the horses go around. One guy says, I don't think they do take all 4 feet off. Another guy says, I think they do. Well, how can we check that out? Let's take a bunch of pictures really fast, string them together, and hopefully see if we can actually make it seem like it's running. Okay? Again, that's where we kind of had our loops and stuff come in. So once people started seeing this technology and they started figuring out that you can actually take a bunch of pictures and loop them together, there was a lot of cool magic tricks you can do with that. Okay? That film that I showed you in the garden scene, can you imagine that being put up on the wall in here with all the lights turned off, and all of a sudden you see people up on the screen in black and white? Look like ghosts. Okay? As a matter of fact, that's what they actually used to do in picture houses very early on. This is what helped develop what's called the silent film era. And the silent film era took place from 1894 to 1929. So it was about 35 years of individuals coming in and watching films pushed up or projected up on an actual screen. We'd get this reel of filminin, okay, long, thin membrane, strip of membrane. We'd shine light through it, and that light would depict a bunch of images up on the screen. People would come and sit down inside of a picture house, or you guys would know that today as a movie theater, sit down and watch it up on the screen and be entertained. Now, there was no sound attached to this because we hadn't figured out how to actually pick up or get sound yet. So what they would do is they would have live orchestras play down below in front of the screen, so that way there would be music that would come along. And when anyone said anything up on screen, you would follow that up with written dialogue up on the screen so you would know what the person said. Okay. One of the films that was very, very popular back in this time period ended up being Hitler's favorite film, one of his favorite films, and it was called Metropolis. And you guys can watch that on YouTube today because it's a free, open domain film. And while it is long and arduous to sit through, it's not necessarily something fun you want to go home and be like, dude, I'm going to turn on Metropolis today. It is still one of the best pictures ever actually made. So what I want to do is I want to give you guys a little bit of the experience of what it was like to be in a picture house back then, and to kind of feel what it was like to watch silent films. So we're going to watch about 2 minutes of it up here on the screen, because I really think it's important for you guys to kind of feel what it's like for those individuals and for those people to kind of be in that particular moment during this time period. Okay, traveling back about 100 years ago. Okay. So you can see, 100 years ago, how much different is that than what we do today? Decent amount? Okay, why would you say that?
Well,
Yeah.
a few reasons. There's
Okay.
no audio. I mean, obviously, all
Yeah.
of that or music that was in there was added into the video afterwards.
Okay, yeah, correct. Because that's what people would experience at the time. All the music was added in afterwards. But yeah, no audio. You had no idea what was happening or kind of what was going on. You had to fully focus and hope that you understood the film by watching it and seeing how the actors conveyed what it was they were trying to convey. Even as their lips were moving, you're like, huh, what, like you're like trying to look in there, and then all of a sudden you see a big slide that says, come, it's time to give the machine man your face, and you're like, okay, this is really weird stuff, right? So we did end up progressing quite a bit. Unfortunately, it was right after this film was done that someone said, why can't we just record audio the same way we record our radio? And just somehow time it to play it back simultaneously with the picture. So you don't actually have to add audio necessarily to the moving images. What happens if you just say, I'm going to start this, I'm going to hit play here, I'm going to hit play here at the same time, and then they'll sync up. And they'll end up playing out at the same time. So that's when they started to experiment this a little bit more. Metropolis came out in 1927. The first talkie also came out the same year. And that first talkie was called The Jazz Singer. Okay, pretty racist film. White characters playing blackface, playing around with black actors and stuff. It's only memorable simply because it was the first film that actually had people talking. And so if you look up The Jazz Singer, you will actually see individuals singing, talking with each other, and you can hear actually what it is that they're saying back and forth to one another. Well, this disrupted this industry because during this time period, silent film stars were fantastic as long as they weren't heard. You know those like significant others that you're looking at and you're like, man, that person is beautiful, that person's awesome. And they say one word and you're like, dear God, I want to get away from them. Like they're not as cute as I thought they were. That's exactly what happened with a lot of the silent film stars. So a lot of these guys kind of started falling out of favor, not only in the Hollywood industry, but also just in the industry itself. Because now instead of just having to act and project yourself up on screen and not have to worry about a language because you can cut out the boards and have it be in any language that you want it to be in, now your words had to mean something as well as the visuals that people were taking a look at. And so because of that, things started to change. It was also during this time period that, again, the television was invented. It was invented in 1928 by a man named Philo Farnsworth, shown off, I believe, at a fair on September 1st, 1928, if I remember correctly. I think it was the New York Fair or something like that. Where basically he said, I'm sick and tired of people having to go to picture houses in order to see films. If you wanted to see newsreels, if you wanted to see any sort of film, you had to go to a picture house because everyone kind of had to come together and all sit down and get shown the same thing at the same time. The technology wasn't prevalent yet. You got to remember, we've only gone like about 30 years from here to here. So there's maybe 40 years. Okay, so there hasn't been enough time really for the technology to advance to the point where individuals can have it all on their own. So Philo Farnsworth said, well, instead of bringing people to the picture house, what happens if we bring the picture house to the people? Let's invert that. Okay, so how are we going to be able to send pictures from New York to California? Is that even possible for someone that's in California to watch something that's in New York? Because again, if you have to go to the picture houses, if your picture house doesn't have the latest Fast and the Furious film, you're not going to be able to see it. Okay? Because they don't have it. If you imagine that you guys were stuck basically with whatever the city of Murrieta had, you guys would get bored pretty quick, right? Especially watching the same thing over and over again, okay? Because you can't just go anywhere else and watch different stuff. So he invented a way through utilizing radio signals to send one video source to some other place and also attach audio and send audio with it. So you send audio over radio, you send video over radio. And that's what the television ended up doing. So what ended up happening was instead of just having news, instead of having different like music videos, like videos playing in the background as people are playing music, instead of having advertisements or promotional videos, films, there wasn't really television shows yet, but episodic programming, all in the picture house, what Philo Farnsworth said is, let's take news and information about what's going on in the World War I, World War II time period, and let's project that and send that back and forth to people. And let's do that utilizing radio waves. And so that's where the television ended up coming along. So that was good for a little while, and then World War II really broke out. So from about 36 or so, 1937, until about 1947, innovation and development and technology stopped. Okay? You had your picture, you had your videos, but it didn't really go anywhere too much because of the war that was happening. There were two sides that were being fought. Okay? But the great news, or the great thing about tragedy and war is it gives opportunity, or it gives way to opportunity. So what individuals would do, different countries, the US, Germany, and so on and so forth, is they would embed video groups and video crews and photographers in with these platoons to document what was actually happening. And through the documentation of what was happening around them, you started to develop a much broader film and photography industry. Because if you want to run propaganda for your particular country and you want people to ascribe to a certain point of view and a way to look at the world, you have to show them that's the way the world actually is. And so propaganda really started to come about a lot more through the 1940s. But eventually, once people settled back down, the war was over, everything was won, people started to get bored again. And so they would go back to the picture houses. Well, it's cool that you can get cool stuff at the picture houses, but if you start seeing the same thing over and over and to see the same stories kind of play out, you get kind of bored. And so that's where the technology kind of moved to 3D. Instead of just having one projector aimed at a wall and people dancing across it, let's put two projectors aiming at the same wall, but let's create the illusion of depth. We'll give people these glasses that they can put on. One side of the glasses will see one projector with their right eye. The other part, the left side of the glass, will see the other projector with their left eye, and it'll create the illusion of depth. And so that's where 3D started being developed in the 1950s, and it got people to come back to the picture houses, to the movie theaters. Okay? So people started to go along and loved what they were seeing inside the picture houses and the movie theaters and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, after a little while, again, they started to kind of get bored. Okay, you can only go see Fast and the Furious whenever the picture house is playing Fast and the Furious. I want to take Fast and the Furious home with me. I want to watch Lord of the Rings, I want to watch a Star Wars film, I want to watch something else, but I want to watch it on my own time and in my own space. So a couple of Japanese companies started to develop a way for us to take home ownership of these films and watch them whenever we wanted to instead of waiting for the picture houses to show them in theaters. Not only that, there were some picture houses that were getting requests to show specific movies and they didn't have copies of them. So we need to find a way to make copies faster, and as we make copies faster, make them better quality and give it to the people when they actually want it, because apparently they have much more time for entertainment. So in 1974 and 1975, Betamax and VHS came up with two different competing formats. And there was different ways for you to take information that you're seeing in the picture houses or in the movie theaters and take it home. Now VHS had a way for you to have a 2-hour slot that you can record stuff on, a 4-hour slot, and a 6-hour slot. Betamax, though, had higher quality video, but it was basically stuck at about the 2 to 3 hour mark in recording time. Okay? Now, when you're in the 1970s and you're worried more about getting content out than about the quality of the content, it's the same as pirating today. There are people around here that would be fine with pirating a copy of Fast and the Furious if it was only 360p as opposed to high definition 1080 because they just want to watch the film. They don't care how good it looks. So because of that and the prevalence of that in 1974 and 75, these two competing brands one ended up on top of the other and one outcompeted the other. VHS ended up winning that format war. By the way, it was like the Xbox, PlayStation war of our time. Okay, that's how it was basically back then. VHS won out because of a longer playtime, but not just because of a longer playtime. They also won because the porn industry adopted it. Now, why is that important? People like porn. Okay, good, but what else?
It's a big industry.
Okay, it is a big industry. Very big. Actually, I think it's either as big or bigger than Disney. Yeah, and by the way, just so you know, Disney owns Star Wars, Marvel, their animated films and stuff. Was that?
They don't make remakes though.
Yeah, that's true. Well, there's argument to be made for that, but yeah. Okay. Here's why this is important. When people are looking for their porn, up until this point, where did they have to go to watch it? The picture houses.
So they all watched it together?
They all watched it together. Yeah. So you would see one guy sitting down the first row, one guy sitting down the third row, a couple of girls up here talking with each other, laughing and snickering, which, by the way, you guys know what that means these days. Okay? There's a lot of stuff that was happening going on. But yeah, if you were a dude and you wanted to yoink your stuff while we're taking a look at a picture, you had to do it in front of other dudes. It's the reason why they were called smut house. I think they were called smut houses or slut houses, one or the other, too. Okay? Guys with seedy areas where, man, if you wanted to go just, have fun on your own, you'd have to do it in front of other dudes. It's the way it was. Now, all of a sudden, you have two competing formats, and one of these formats is letting you take a lot of it home instead of just high quality porn. It lets you take a lot. You can see why people would start adopting that a lot more. Okay? So that's the reason why VHS won out. And that's what caused the porn industry to grow much larger, because you had the hippie movement that happened right before this, about 5 to 10 years before, and you started to have the sexual revolution happening in the US. So this is why history is important, because that actually helped push forward our technology and helped you get what you get on your videos, these videos today. Okay, so again, in the 1970s, we kind of had all this stuff come out. It was cool. People would go now only to the picture houses, only to see big performances, bigger things. So 3 years after this, there was a little film that came out that a lot of people didn't really expect to be a big film that turned to be a big film, and that was Star Wars. And that's what blew up and made the picture house huge all over again, because people can go and watch a space opera, an epic film up on the big screen and see these ships and these lasers and hear the story about this princess and this farm boy, and somehow they're all related against this evil emperor and person who is like Darth Vader. And by the way, there was no emperor at the time. But there's this evil dark force that's oppressing them and stuff. Really, really good, interesting story. Made people want to go back to the picture houses. Okay? They could still take their stuff that they're ashamed of watching in public home, but they would go out and make an event of it and make it a spectacle a little bit later on from the 70s through the 80s. So through the 80s, people loved going to the movie theaters because you get things like Jaws, Indiana Jones, the other Star Wars films, Alien, Predator, Rambo, all these action-type, big adventure-type films. Eventually, people were like, you know what? I feel like I can mimic this type of environment back at my own house again. And so instead of just having a huge amount of it, people wanted to have better quality of it. So if they could create their own sound system at their house, have a big projector there, and TVs are starting to get bigger, why not be able to take those particular films home and pay a premium in order to do so? And so in the 90s, when the internet was being invented, there was a little thing called the DVD that was also being invented. DVD stands for digital video disc. And what that disc would do is it would take a high quality version, not high definition, but a high quality version of the film home for people to watch it on their bigger screens and their nicer sound systems. Okay? And so once you start to have bigger screens and nicer sound systems, people wanted to watch more of these high quality videos and would pay, again, a premium in order to be able to do so. So as they were doing so, there was a little company that was up in Palo Alto that saw that there was the coming of the internet and that people wanted to watch these DVDs. And so they created a company called Netflix, which tried to mimic what Amazon does. Amazon would take your orders on the internet and deliver your products through the mail. At the time, they were delivering only books. And so as they would continue to deliver this content, they would take their order online and deliver a physical content. Netflix would buy up a bunch of DVDs and rent them out to people. And then when you're done with it, there's no late fees. You can just turn it back in when you have it. You just get to rent 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, depending on which plan you have. As soon as they got it back in, you can rent another one. Another one on your list would be sent right to you. Okay? It was also during this time period that people were trying to figure out how can we use the internet to do what the television did, which is send video out to a bunch of different people. And not just big quality video, because you have these big television stations now, right? It's difficult for you to get in. What if I, as a lonely little dude, like in my own house, I have opinions on Star Wars coming out here in 1999, the new one, and I want to get that information to other people? How am I going to be able to do that? I just got done playing GoldenEye on the N64 and stuff, and I want to give people my video review of it. How can I get that video review out to people? People started figuring out that you could actually process and transform film into digital content via streaming. So streaming windows were really, really small. Like they were like postage stamp size windows. But that was a way, again, to disseminate information out. It doesn't have to be high quality. We want to just get a bunch of it out in a bunch of different ways, and I want to be able to do it instead of having to go through a corporation or a business to do it. Okay? So these started to ascend and kind of go up. Well, as this is happening simultaneously, people are like, you know what? Why don't we just do this with audio as well? So you started to have an audio revolution once the iPod came out with something called podcasting. People would record themselves talking about whatever they wanted to talk about, maybe a show that they got done doing, maybe a video game, again, that just came out. And they would send this out in an MP3 form to anyone with an iPod. And Apple provided a way for you to download those onto an iPod. It was only iPod to start out with. That's the reason why they were called podcasts. Otherwise, they would have been called netcasts. Okay? But that's kind of where it started. So once the guys started to see, hey, you can do this with video, a couple of other guys said, hey, why don't we create a service where people can create their own audio and video and upload it and send it out to people? And that's where YouTube got its start, almost 15 years ago, which, by the way, some of you in here, I think, are younger than YouTube now, which is crazy to think about because I was around and watched this. I actually learned about YouTube probably about 2006. But I was on YouTube pretty early, and it was like the coolest thing ever that you could actually film something and put it up there. It was a little bit difficult to transfer stuff because we haven't quite moved to digital film cameras yet, but it was still pretty nice to be able to get some of that stuff. While that was happening and inroads were being made in the streaming area, the quality of the DVDs and the discs started to go up as well, because big market companies started to see that individuals can rise up and do their own little thing. And because those individuals were rising up, it made them raise the ante as well. So 10 years after you got the DVD, you got something a little bit different. You got the high definition digital video disc that had a 1080p version of the film. You couldn't stream it, couldn't find it. There's no way you can download it or anything like that. The only way you can get it was buying the disc, and you had to give it to a company. So that came out. This product was packaged with Microsoft's Xbox 360 system. Okay, and while that came out, Sony came out with a competing version of it. They came out with the PlayStation 3, which had what they called a Blu-ray player on there. So all of a sudden you had the VHS, Betamax war all over again 30 years later. This is what actually started the console wars. It wasn't that Xbox was better or that PlayStation was better. It was that there were two competing different formats, and people were trying to figure out which format they wanted to use, because the HD DVD wasn't going to work with a Blu-ray player. A Blu-ray was not going to work with an HD DVD player because they're two different formats. Okay. So in 2007, 2008, right around that time period, Blu-ray ended up winning out. HD DVDs kind of went away by the wayside. And the reason why they went away by the wayside was because Blu-ray was backed by not only Disney, but also the porn industry. And so when you have the kids industry, basically, which is Disney, all the kids are watching all their stuff on Blu-ray, and you have all the dads, some of the moms, but all the dads watching their porn or whatever on high definition or Blu-rays instead of HD DVDs. You can see why no one would want to buy an HD DVD, which is why it went away. And so now we have Blu-rays today. Okay? So that kind of brings us up to kind of where we're at today. The last 10 to 15 years, there hasn't been that much innovation. You have things like Twitch, you have things like Mixer, you'll have things like Ustream, YouTube, and so on and so forth. You can kind of add the element of video games in there. That's just starting to come in. But that's kind of the history of video and how we got to where we're at in video production today. You either have a Blu-ray disc that you export all your stuff out on, you put it as a file, and so that way you can stream it online or download it to a computer. And that's pretty much it. Very rarely is stuff put out on actual film unless it's to be used for archival purposes. So we went from having one image to multiple image to let's add on sound, then let's distribute it out to a couple of people nearby, then let's distribute it to people that are nowhere near us, to then let's have these companies that can distribute it out anywhere, anytime, any place. Then let's have all these big, big, big pieces of film and so on and so forth. And then you have it kind of cycle back down where the little guy says, hey, I want to do that by myself. And so he starts creating his own VHS tapes, then all of a sudden starts getting into streaming, and then starts rising up a little bit more. And this is how you're getting people like Ninja and so on and so forth today. Okay? So that's a very brief history of film and video and where we're at today and how we got to where we got to. Does anyone have any questions about any of that stuff and what I've gone over so far? Because that's a lot to throw at you right off the bat. No? Okay. So now that we kind of have a little bit of a background in film history, and by the way, some of your finals will have some of these history questions on it. It'll go back to some of those things. What I want to do is I want us to take a look at a film that we'll watch during second semester. It's called Inception. How many of you guys have seen Inception in here? Only 1, 2. I love it. There's like 3 or 4 people that have actually seen it, and it's one of the best movies of all time. If you look on IMDb's list, it's in the top 10. And like no one has seen it, even though everyone has seen it at the same time. I remember when it came out, I could tell that it was going to be something special just because of how long it took Chris Nolan to put it together. It actually took him 10 years to put together, and we'll go over why it took him 10 years to put that together here in a little while. But we're going to take a look at the film. And as we're taking a look at the film, I want you guys to think about the 6 essential questions. Do you guys remember what those 6 essential questions are? You should have learned this back in 2nd grade. 6 essential questions. You always want to ask who, what, when, where, why, and how. Okay? A bunch of those things. So I'm going to give you a couple of prompts and things to look for inside this particular film. Okay? So the prompts I'm going to give you is, who is this film about? What happens in this film? When does this film happen? Okay? Where does this film take place? Why are certain things happening? And how are certain things happening? And the reason why I want to go over these particular things is because I really want us to kind of see and take a look at what it's like for an individual to write a story and to kind of draw someone into a world. It's not as easy as most people think it is. But not only that, it's very interesting when you are actually able to do it and able to pull it off. So if you give me 1 second, I'll go ahead and pull it up here. As soon as I can get this right there. Cool. So this light I have there. This one? Nope, that's my amazing Asian friend. One of these has it. There we go. It's 24. There's time codes I'm looking for because there's specific times we have to watch this. Okay. Here we go.
I've got somebody better. Ariadne? I'd like you to meet Mr. Cobb.
Pleased to meet you.
If you have a few moments, Mr. Cobb has a job offer he'd like to discuss with you.
Work placement?
Not exactly. I have a test for you.
You're not going to tell me anything about this first?
Before I describe the job, I have to know you can do it.
Why?
It's not, strictly speaking, legal. You have 2 minutes to design a maze that it takes 1 minute to solve. Stop. Again. Stop. You're gonna have to do better than that. That's more like it. They say we only use a fraction of our brain's true potential. Now, that's when we're awake. When we're asleep, our mind can do almost anything.
Such as?
Well, imagine you're designing a building, right? You consciously create each aspect. But sometimes it feels like it's almost creating itself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like I'm discovering it.
Genuine inspiration, right? Now, in a dream, our mind continuously does this. We create and perceive our world simultaneously, and our mind does this so well that we don't even know what's happening. That allows us to get right in the middle of that process.
How?
By taking over the creating part. Now, this is where I need you. You create the world of the dream. We bring the subject into that dream, and they fill it with their subconscious.
How could I ever acquire enough detail to make them think that it's reality?
Well, dreams they feel real while we're in them, right? It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange. Let me ask you a question. You never really remember the beginning of a dream, do you? You always wind up right in the middle of what's going on.
I guess, yeah.
So how did we end up here?
Well, we just came from the,
Think about it, Ariadne. How did you get here? Where are you right now?
We're dreaming?
You're actually in the middle of the workshop right now, sleeping. This is your first lesson in shared dreaming. Stay calm. It's never just a dream, is it? And a face full of glass hurts like hell. When you're in it, it feels real.
It's why the military developed dream sharing. It was a training program for soldiers to shoot and stab and strangle each other and then wake up.
How did architects become involved?
Someone had to design the dreams, right? Why don't you give us another 5 minutes?
5 minutes? What? We were talking for like at least an hour.
In a dream, your mind functions more quickly, therefore, time seems to feel more slow.
5 minutes in the real world gives you an hour in the dream.
Why don't you see what you can get up to in 5 minutes? Got the basic layout. Bookstore, cafe, almost everything else is here too.
Who are the people?
Projections of my subconscious.
Yours?
Yes. Remember, you are the dreamer. You build this world. I am the subject. My mind populates it. You can literally talk to my subconscious. That's one of the ways we extract information from the subject.
How else do you do it?
By creating something secure like a bank vault or a jail, the mind automatically fills it with information it's trying to protect. Understand?
Then you break in and steal it.
Well,
I guess I thought that the dream space would be all about the visual, but it's more about the feel of it. My question is, what happens when you start messing with the physics of it all? Something, isn't it?
yes, it is.
Okay. Are you guys watching closely? Hopefully. Hopefully the answer is yes. All right. What's really cool is if you were paying attention to that 6-minute clip, they just got done telling you not only how to get an A in this class, but how to get a communications degree, a bachelor's communications degree, a master's in science and communication, and also make it in the Hollywood industry. All in those 6 minutes, if you're paying close attention. And we'll expand on those as the year goes on. But that's one of the most important scenes that I think you'll see and that I can show you guys this year. So the first question I have is, who is this film about? Who? Some of you are probably like, it's the dude and the chick, right? Because you couldn't quite get their names. You couldn't figure out that one of them was named as Dom or Cobb. The other one was named as Ariadne. Okay. Some of you might say it's Leo DiCaprio and Ellen Page. Okay, those are their real names, and so on and so forth. Some of you might even say it's not about any of that, it's about me. And you'll notice that all 3 of those answers can actually be correct, because they are all correct in that sense. All right? What happens in the film? Anyone want to hazard a guess as to what's happening and what's going on in this particular film? Saw some cars, saw some people. What were they talking about? Go for it. Yes, Ariel? Okay, Ariel. Ariel, it's Ariel, right? Layla. Ooh. Oh, that's right. Okay. Okay, we're talking about military equipment. That's what's used actually to get people into each other's dreams. Okay, that's kind of what's happening in there. But what's more specifically, let's go to this. Let's ask the question: what's happening in the dream? Say that again. Glass is falling on her. Some stuff literally explodes. Okay, and right in front of her, and then she apparently wakes up, and then she's not in a dream anymore. Okay, when does this film happen? What's the time era? Can you guys tell? Current. When you say current, is that 2010s? Is that 2000s? Is it 21st century? Okay, which is crazy weird because if they're in a dream, when is the dream taking place? What's the time era there? Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Because when you start thinking about and asking just these 6 simple questions, you can see just how layered and deep that 6 minutes is, and how much you can actually miss even though it's all right in front of you. And so that's really why I kind of start with these lectures inside of the class when we first start out with some of this stuff. I really, really want to push you guys to try and think past what you're just seeing up here on the screen and more towards, okay, what is the person trying to get across? Because those are 2 completely different things. It's like a boyfriend and a girlfriend when they're getting into an argument. She's like, I can't believe you looked at that girl. He's going, I didn't look at the girl. I can't believe it. Why don't you ever look at me that way? And he's like, I do look at you that way. To the guy, he saw a girl that looked really hot walk by, and he's like, oh, okay, cool, she's pretty hot. The girl saw that as a girl walked by, what does she have that I don't, because his gaze is no longer looking at me. 2 completely different things. They seem like they're having the same conversation, asking the same question, but they're actually not. And so when they have an argument, they're having an argument about 2 different things. Okay? And that's something I want you guys to start seeing, especially in the films that you're watching. Some of you watch Fast and the Furious and you see it about family. Others look at it and go, man, why are they crashing cars and making it look like things blowing up and so on and so forth? You want to make it look fantasy. If it looks too real, all of a sudden your cousin just got killed by a drunk driver last week and you see that happen up on screen, you're like, shoot, now I feel sad. I came here to watch this film and be happy about it. Not to relive reality. I want to live fantasy. So I want to watch cars go down a runway that seems apparently like 26 miles because they just keep going down a freaking runway forever, right? So this plays into the type of films that we start to develop and that we pick and choose to watch and that appeal to us. Hey, why are certain things happening in the film? Why are they happening in the dream and so on and so forth? How do certain things happen? There's a bunch of different things that happen in a bunch of different ways. And that's why I like showing this clip right off the bat, is because this is kind of where we start to really understand what we can do when it comes to video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys like a quick 2-3 minute break to kind of chat with people, stand up, do stuff or whatever. We're out of here at 11:05, so we still have about 40 minutes left. I have another half of a lecture to kind of go through, but I'll make sure you guys are still kind of feeling it as we're going through. So if you guys want to stand up and take a break really quick, you can. I'm going to get that other PowerPoint set up, and then once the music's done, we'll get right back to it. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and get started on the next part of this. So now we kind of got done going over kind of the history, and we took a look at a 6-minute clip from a much longer 2.5-hour video. I really kind of want to peg down the technology side of things so you guys can start to understand just the tech that we're using. Because right now, I don't know if most of you guys can tell. I mean, you probably do because I already told you this. I'm actually recording my lectures as I go through classes and stuff. But I'm actually controlling the camera that's right back there from my computer. Not only that, like it's not even being sent directly to my computer. It's being sent across a network, with probably down towards MVUSD, and then sent back over here. As a matter of fact, Mr. Ruiz can actually watch me right now in his class, which you'll see from time to time we actually do, because we're utilizing the technology. So I really want to jump into the technology side of things. It seems like I'm all over the place because we went history, then we went psychology, and now we're going technology. But I want to give just a broad overview of everything that we're utilizing so you guys can kind of better understand it before we start jumping into things. So my question for you guys that I normally ask you guys to discuss with each other about is, what is video? But I'm just going to kind of throw that out there as a class suggestion, just to the entire class. What do you guys think video actually is? Anything. Go for it. Something that's captured in the moment. Okay, cool, fair enough. What else? Anyone else? Camera recording. Okay, so it's something that's captured in the moment. Okay. It's also a camera recording is also what I heard. Anything else? Yep. Okay, express feelings. Cool. And actually, you ready for this? You're all right. Because that's what you're actually doing when you're taking a video. Even when you're pulling out your phone to do a stupid little TikTok or something like that. Okay? Or back in the day, back in my day, it was Vine, like way back in the day. Because it's weird, because I was a beta tester for Vine. I used to use it all the time. You can actually go back on my Twitter and see all the stuff I used to use. But you just couldn't really monetize it. And so I don't know how TikTok's going to monetize what it's doing, but that's a whole other side story. When you're doing even those small little videos, 3 seconds long, 5 seconds long, you're still hitting all these things. You're trying to capture the moment, you're trying to record it on a camera, and you're trying to express some feelings because apparently other people need to know about those particular feelings. That is very layered. It's not just one piece of technology. It's not just the history. It's not just the feelings. It's all of it put together. And to try and write something, because we'll get into writing and how that actually works, trying to write something that hits all those layers comes across and seems very difficult. But it's no different than the way you talk to your friends each and every single day. The only difference is you're adding in the technological component. Okay? And so that's what I want to jump on here is, what is video technically? Okay, so if we actually take a look at video technically, we'll find out that it is this. It is this exact technical definition. Video is the technology. Okay, so that's number one. It's technology. Okay, what kind of technology is it? It's of electronically capturing, recording, processing, storing, transmitting, and reconstructing, and it's doing a sequence of still images that represent scenes in motion. So we're going to have to break that entire definition down, and I know it's really friggin' long. It's 4 lines long up here on the screen. But if you take out any part of that definition, you don't have video. So the first part, where it says it's technology, video cannot be done or put together without tech. Okay? So it's got to be some sort of tool, because that's what technology is. Technology is just a bunch of tools that is used in such a way. What does that mean? If it's a tool, that means you don't get to you are the one that gets to decide what it does. It does not get to decide what it does. So if something is not working right off the bat, the question isn't what is it doing wrong, it's what am I doing wrong? How am I not utilizing the tool? Now the tool can be broken and the tool cannot be put together, but typically it's the tool handler that is working on and utilizing the tool. Okay? So the first thing that I'm going to say is, okay, what are you doing and why are you doing it this way? It's not to put you down. It's not to say you're horrible and you don't know what you're doing. You shouldn't know what you're doing, otherwise you wouldn't be in here. It's to say, hey, what is this tool being utilized for? The second part of this definition says that it's electronic. If we don't have electricity, we don't have film. Even if we have to generate our own electricity, we're still generating electricity in order for things to work. So if the power goes out here, seems like we're done. because we can't use the camera to go out and film. We can't use the computers to go and edit. We can't use a lot of stuff. Now, you can still make film. You can do a pre-production without utilizing video. But if you actually need to record or stream a video and you don't have electricity, it takes it offline. Which, by the way, if you ever wanted to attack a society anymore, you don't need to drop bombs. You just need to take out their electrical grid. Because if you can't charge your phone and you can't get on the internet, you have no access to anything that's electronic. That's the reason why a lot of you in here are addicted to your phones. Because if that goes away, you have to interface with real people, and you're not used to doing it. Because you're at the age where you're still growing up, so this kind of helps put a barrier. The phone helps put a barrier between you and the other people to an extent. It's also the reason why people are cyber bullies, quote unquote, or trolls, much more than they are in real life. It takes a lot to actually bully someone in real life, because then you have to actually face-to-face the individual and step up for the consequences of your actions. Whereas if you do something online, there's a barrier, or there's seemingly a barrier, right? Because you don't actually get the face-to-face individual. Okay, so it's technology and it's electronic. There's 6 different parts to it. Those 6 different parts are capturing, so you got to capture it in some way, shape, or form. Once you capture it through a camera lens or something else like that, you have to record it, because it doesn't matter if you capture it, it's just going to go away. You then have to process that information, because as you're recording, if you don't process it, how are you going to be able to pull it back up later on? Okay. Then as you're recording it, it has to be stored on a separate device, because you can't just hit a record button and expect it to record unless there's a separate device that it's stored on for you to pull back up later on. Cool. Okay. That information then has to be transmitted somewhere, and then eventually has to be reconstructed in order for you to view it on the other side. So if there's a break in any of these processes at all, you're going to run into some problems, into some issues. Okay? And what is it doing? It's doing a sequence of still images, which we talked about earlier, a bunch of photographs strung together, a bunch of individual images strung together. It's the reason why you can pause something. Okay? And those still images represent scenes in motion. They aren't actually scenes in motion. It's just a bunch of pictures that make it look like the person did what they actually did, because you can't actually show what the person actually did unless you're actually there with that particular person. Now, watch what happens when you interrupt one of the processes. Okay. Hopefully you guys got that definition down. If not, you can look up here on the big screen, because you can see this screen works and this screen doesn't. What happened over here? TV turned off, right? I got the remote, turned it off. You're like, okay, it's pretty simple, pretty stupid. But no, really, like, what actually happened? Did I cut the electricity to it? Because if I cut the electricity to it, of course it's not going to not put anything up there. Didn't quite cut the electricity to it. Did I cut off the capturing part? No, because it's still capturing in some way, shape, or form the PowerPoint that I had. Well, actually, it had to have captured the PowerPoint at some point, which is why it was recorded, processed, and stored. So none of those 4 things have been taken away. Did I interrupt the transmitting process? Maybe, because there isn't an image that's transmitting over here that's transmitting over here. Is it being reconstructed over here, or over here like it is over here? No, it's not. So it's got to be one of these 2. I either interrupted the transmitting or I interrupted the reconstruction part. If I take a look at my TV, I see it's not on. Okay, so I turn it on. That, in theory, should help get the transmitting part, because it wasn't transmitting the signal over here. And once it transmits the signal and comes back, it reconstructs it up here, and all of a sudden I have a video up on my video screen. Okay? Same thing with your phone. Okay? If you were to pull out your phone and you were to start take a look at your phone, like mine does it sometimes. I'll see if I can pull it out here really quick. My screen is all messed up. Okay? So like sometimes when I pull out my phone, I have to literally push my screen back together, because the phone is 5 years old. I have to push my screen back together so that way the logic boards are touching, so that way the transmission and the reconstruction of the images that are coming to it, I can see them again. Okay? So if we forget one part of this definition, that's when we're going to lose video. If you forget to hit the record button, it's not going to process or store anything or transmit it and so on and so forth, but it'll still capture. It just won't put it anywhere. That's how you can see that it's actually seeing stuff through that particular device. Okay? So if any part of this definition is missing, you don't have video. That's where it actually starts. You need to make sure that you have all of these parts of this definition. Okay? Now inside of video, there's 9 major components that you need to have before you actually have anything on camera or in video. Yes, you can make sure all this stuff actually works, but there's 9 different components to it. And you can either have them there or you can take them out. But here they are. They are talent. You have to have something up on the screen. You have to have a camera because you have to record it in some way, shape, or form, or to get it to the screen. Okay, you have to have a crew because someone needs to know how to operate the camera, which is different than the talent who's going to be performing on the camera. Okay, you have to have lighting because if you don't have light, it can't capture anything. The crew can't record it onto a camera, and you won't be able to see the talent. You have to have color. That's new. Even black and white, even though they are a absence of color in all the colors, it's still color. Okay. You have to have scenery, so it has to take place inside of some 3D, three-dimensional space in some way, shape, or form. You have to have sound, because now we're attaching sound to this, to these different things, and we'll go over sound in a little bit. You have to have some sort of script, because A isn't going to happen without B occurring, and then it's going to lead to C, and so on and so forth. And the last thing you need to have is some sort of plot. It has to be going somewhere. So not only do you have to structure it, but it has to go somewhere. Even something as simple, again, as a TikTok will have all of these components together. And you're like, no, I'm just pulling out my phone to record someone doing something. Yeah, but that's the whole point. That is a script in and of itself, right? If you say, no, that's not a script, that is a script because you're structuring it because the whole reason why you're pulling your phone out is to record someone about to do something that has to do with everything that's happening around it. Okay? The plot is what helps push it forward. Doesn't just give it structure, because you can have structure all day long. If you don't push it forward inside that three-dimensional space, it's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to stay and hang around. So you need to have all 9 of these particular components, because if you're missing one of those, again, you're not going to have video. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a clip for you right now from the film Unbreakable. Okay? How many of you guys have seen Unbreakable? Cool. One person. Again, it's another film that a lot of people haven't seen that really kind of saw it back in the day. Okay? So I'm going to play a quick little scene, except I'm going to take away all the components of video, not all the components of a video, and I'm also going to take away one part of the definition of the word video. And I want you to watch that, how that plays out up here on screen. Okay? I know that sounds a bit weird, that you're like, okay, how's this going to play up here on screen? But I want you to try and just sit here and watch the screen as it's playing out. Okay, if I can find it. Where is it? Good job, teacher. You're horrible. Just play the thing. Do it. Go. Go. Do it. It doesn't want to do it. What's wrong? Ah, party foul. There we go. Of course. Normally the teacher has his stuff together and has it ready, but apparently decided not to do that today.
I'm afraid of water.
Here we go.
You think that's a problem?
There we go. Or we can decide to not play, and we're going to play a different part. Here we go. Try and watch the screen as it's playing.
Hi. I'm Dr. Dubin. You're in the emergency room in the Philadelphia City Hospital. There's a serious accident. Look at me. How are you feeling?
Okay.
Good. I'm gonna ask you some questions. Have you had any heart or asthma problems in the past?
No.
Kidney or renal problems?
No.
Any allergies? Where were you sitting on the train?
Against the window.
In the passenger car?
Yeah. passengers.
Was your family traveling with you? Did you get up from your seat? Are you certain you were in the passenger car?
Yes. Why are you looking at me like that?
Your train derailed. Some kind of malfunction. They only found 2 people alive so far. You and this man. His skull was cracked open and most of his left side was crushed. And to answer your question, there are 2 reasons why I'm looking at you like this. One, because it seems in a few minutes that you will officially be the only survivor of this train wreck. And 2, because you didn't break one bone. You don't have a scratch on you.
Okay. Cool. So now let's bring it back. You got done watching a blank wall for 3 minutes. How was it? Most people are yeah.
It's basically a really awkward first.
Yeah, it's weird, right? It's weird just to sit at a wall and be like, okay, I'm supposed to listen to something. Like literally more than half of you, probably 2/3 of you, were looking down at your phones the entire time. Okay, so I have a couple of questions now for this video that we just got done watching. How many talent are on screen? Okay, 2. How many different times did the camera change positions or change shots? None? 5, 6, 7, 8 times? 200 times? Right? Crew. Could you see any crew that were in there? Sure? Might have, maybe not. Lighting. Look, is it bright? Is it dark? What's it like? Bright. Okay, so let's go to the colors. So what color were the walls? Black. Okay. You're like going, okay, Seipp, why are you asking me all of these different questions and stuff? Because all these questions need to be asked in order for a video to actually work. Okay, so like if I asked you scenery, how many different people in the background, or like where are we at? Some of you guys can say a hospital. Cool. Where in the hospital? Are we in a patient? Are we in a patient's room? Are we in the lobby? Are we in the ER? Like there's a lot of different places for scenery. There's a lot of decisions again that have to be made in order to get this shot to look the way it is, which is why everyone was looking down at their phones because they didn't see it. So it doesn't matter how much time a person put in the script, the plot, where we're going to be moving forward, the talent, the crew, and so on and so forth. Doesn't matter because you're not going to take a look at it. So what's the point, right? So now that we know all of this, hopefully you guys are able to kind of keep that in your mind as you were thinking about things. What I want to do is I want to go actually back through the script. And I legitimately want to know, is this what this actually looked like to you? Because I guarantee you, for the most part, unless you've seen the film, it didn't look this way. And the reason why it didn't look this way is because the person that had to develop it and designed it and develop it to look a very particular way. Okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at that.
I'm Dr. Dubin. You're in the emergency room in the Philadelphia City Hospital. You're in a serious accident. Look at me. How are you feeling?
Okay.
Good. I'm gonna ask you some questions. Have you ever had any heart or asthma problems in the past?
No.
Kidney or renal problems?
No.
Any allergies? Where were you sitting on the train?
Against the window.
In the passenger car?
Yeah. Where are the other passengers?
Was your family traveling with you? Did you get up from your seat? Are you certain you were in the passenger car?
Yes. Why are you looking at me like that?
Your train derailed. Some kind of malfunction. They only found 2 people alive so far. You and this man. His skull was cracked open and most of his left side was crushed. And to answer your question, there are 2 reasons why I'm looking at you like this. One, because it seems in a few minutes that you will officially be the only survivor of this train wreck. And 2, because you didn't break one bone. You don't have a scratch on you.
Is that how you saw it in your head? Probably not. Okay. So let's go back through it again. All right, let me pull this back up here. If I can even exit out. Quit. No, not even exit. Not even quit. Maybe I do have to quit. Ay, ay, ay. Let's go to Chrome. Cool. Talent. How many people were up on screen? Yeah, most of it was actually about 5. You had the 2 individuals that were talking, doctor and patient. You had 2 doctors working on an individual that was being operated on. So there were 5 in that scene. Then you had a few, it's about 70 or 80 as you get closer towards the end for that other shot. Okay, camera, how many different shots do you have?
Just 2.
At least 2, yeah. But it's not just one, like some people were thinking. Okay, could you see any of the crew at all? Okay, if you're looking real closely, you can actually see some of the crew members in the background of those crowds of people. They didn't do a good job of getting those people out. Lighting, was it bright or dark? It was dark, right? Okay. Color, adding in a lot of blues, greens. The only time you see red is once the patient starts to die and bleed out, right up there on the table. Scenery, again, we're in 2 different places. We're in an ER room, but then we're in an ER waiting room / lobby room, even though it's really quiet. Okay. Sound plays a huge role in what it was that we were hearing. You only knew that we were in a hospital in the first place because of the beeping, and the only way you would know what that beeping is if you understood what a hospital was. Okay. Script and plot. So there are a lot of intricacies that were at work before you actually saw the video that you saw. Someone or some people took a lot of time thinking about and wondering what they were going to put into that particular image. So that means that what was up here on the screen was exactly what was intended to be up there. They utilized the technology, they used the tools correctly, and took everything that they didn't want out to make that scene the way they wanted it to play through. Now here's what's really crazy about what just happened. Okay, you guys saw when I got up, right, the first time? You guys saw I got up and kind of walked around and stuff and stood back and then sat down. How many of you guys watched me or saw me when I did it again? Okay, 1, maybe 2, 3, few hands. Some of you are going, wait, you did? Literally both times. The first time he said, did you get up from your seat? I got up from my seat. I walked over here, walked around the back, went through here, went over here to the door. Once I got to the door, I waited until they were done talking. Then I walked back down this aisle, came back down here, and sat down in this seat. Then when I played up on the screen again, I did the exact same thing. When he said, did you get up from your seat? I got up from my seat, walked around, went through this way, stood at that back of the door, waited till they were done talking, walked down the aisle, came back down here, and sat down in this chair. Now, why is that important? The reason why that's important is because the only difference between both those times was where your eyes were locked. So if you miss what's right in front of you, and if you don't see it, it doesn't change the fact that it's not there. It changes the fact that you know it or you don't. And so keeping that in mind when you're watching a protest on Twitter and you're reading about our president, our former president, protests in the streets, news, whatever you want to, you're not necessarily thinking about what it is that you're missing or what that person is doing and when they're adding that particular video into your cognitive space. And so that's what I'm going to attempt to do this year with this particular class, is to say, hey, wait, let's stop. What are we doing to people's brains? What is being done to your brain? Why do you feel like you constantly have to go back to your phone and check for likes? It's not because you just want to be liked. There's other stuff that goes along with that. Okay? Why is it that you care about how many followers that you have? Is it that you really want to be famous, or is it that you want to be known to make a difference? Because those are two completely different things. Having fame is way different than having money that comes along with fame. Because if you're famous and you can't get away from anyone, anything ever, you can never be alone. If you can't ever be alone, you're constantly by yourself because no one else knows what it's like. Which, by the way, that's how our 44th president lived for a little while. Okay? Obama got really famous and then got really depressed for a long while and would say that it was his wife, Michelle, that would keep him going because no one else knew what it was like. And that's the reason why he and Bush, even though they didn't like each other at all, ended up getting along really well afterwards. Okay, it's the reason why our 45th president actually understands things that the former president actually said and isn't hitting him as hard as he used to, even though he is in the office now. Because there's an understanding that comes along with having the fame that you might have. So understanding these psychological tools is going to help you decide how you're going to make your film. Now, what happens when you start taking away these certain components? Okay, what happens if you take away just lighting and stuff? Or what happens if you take away color? What happens if you take away, different sound? Is it still video or does it feel different? J.J. Abrams had this thought and worked a lot with a bunch of different directors in order to try and make that work. He developed a series of films that is called Cloverfield. Okay, some of you guys might know that series of films. And their whole job, what they're supposed to do, okay, apparently VLC does not want to open. Nice. Reopen, let's try that. Don't send, cancel. What they are trying to do with the Cloverfield series is see what happens when you start taking away, it doesn't look like I can play that. See what happens when you can actually start taking away different elements and components of video to try and make it how you want it to appear up on screen. And see if you really actually need these particular components in order to make it work. Okay, so let's see if I can open that up. Will it actually work? Will the teacher actually ever get his act together? Come on, teacher. Exit. Cool. Okay. Cool. So I got a specific part I'm going to go to, and here it is. So watch what happens when you start taking away elements of film.
In New York Harbor, we're getting word of an oil tanker capsizing in the middle of the harbor near the Statue of Liberty. Once again,
that's really close.
There's no way to know
That's
any
really
of this
close.
is connected.
Let's do, what, do you think you could see something on the roof? Oh, maybe. Sure. Let's see if we can see something on the roof. You know what? Yeah, let's go up there. I think we
What do you think? You think it's another terrorist?
It's insane, man.
shaking everywhere, man. It's like tremors.
Yeah, we're coming this downstairs.
So is this the only lights that went out?
No, a couple did. Some stayed on.
Man, what is going on? Maybe you should have left town a little bit earlier, right? Shit. Go, 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 go!
Sorry. This is why when it comes to putting together your films, if you were to try and engage an audience, you need to engage a feeling. Social media networks engage chaos as part of that feeling to keep you addicted to the thing that's happening. Okay? One of the reasons why people go back on Twitter is because they want to see what else someone else said. The reason why a lot of females typically tend to go on Tumblr is because someone says something that's controversial and you're like, no, it's actually this way, when it's really not, it's actually this way, and you get the engagement back and forth. Okay? Having chaotic engagement, when you start taking away certain elements of a particular thing, in this case video, if you start taking away lighting, if you start taking away the people's ability to understand sound, they will engage with it more because their eyes will lock into the source until they can figure out what's going on. And then once they've mapped it out, then they go away. And then as their dopamine levels go down and so on and so forth, they need an adrenaline rush again, they go back into the chaos and try and see how it happens again. That's why people get in fist fights, especially at your age in high school and so on and so forth, because you want to be able to feel something. It's not necessarily because you're mad at someone else. It's because you're going to engage in the chaos a little bit and hopefully learn something as a result of engaging in that chaos. Okay? So you want to try and make sure all of these are in your particular film, and if they're in your particular film, they're being used correctly. Because if you start taking stuff out, and certain people start taking stuff out, they can try and engage you in a very particular way, and you don't even know that your mind is engaged in that particular manner. Okay? So that brings me up. I have about 5 minutes left here. What is the purpose of video? The purpose of a video is to demonstrate a point to everyone, to the masses. You don't create films or videos just for yourself. You don't create it just for the people that are in your close circle. You create it as you yourself are discovering things that you also want to demonstrate towards other people because you want to change the way that other people are discovering those particular things. So they find it either easier or have a more difficult time doing it. News films, TV shows, episodic programming, sports, broadcasting are daily announcements that we do in each and every single day. There's a lot of thought that goes into each one of those. It doesn't look like it sometimes, but there is. Either way, we want to try and demonstrate a point in what it is that we're doing, and we use the medium of film to demonstrate that point. Okay? Now there is a difference between analog film and digital video, and I'm not going to really highlight these a whole lot today. Like I said, we're going to spend like 2 or 3 minutes on it because it's about time for you guys to get out of this class. Some of you are bored to death. Others of you are really interested and engaged and are like, I wonder what's going to be in the next couple of presentations and lectures. But I do want to explain the difference. Film uses ink to print images out, and it would use a color method which was called CMYK, or the subtractive color method. It's where it mixes cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, or like a key color together to create and demonstrate colors. And typically it's run back at a slower frame rate, or 24 frames per second, so that way it has almost like a glow to it. This is why Quentin Tarantino, J.J. Abrams, Christopher Nolan, and so on and so forth love to shoot on film, because it has almost this this glow to it. It doesn't feel so sharp. It doesn't feel so edgy. It doesn't feel so cold. There's a warmth to it. Okay, and typically it's shot at 24 frames per second. If you double that amount to 48 frames per second, you can utilize it for 3D spaces. Okay, video uses light. Okay, 30 frames per second is typically the average for video these days. If you double that, it goes to 60 frames per second. You can utilize that for three-dimensional objects and three-dimensional spaces, which is why it's typically used for gaming. And it's also the reason why the refresh rate on most TVs is also at least 60 hertz, if not closer to 120, which is a double of 60. So that way you get 4 times the amount of frames for every 1 frame that actually comes through. Okay? Video uses light, uses red, green, and blue to create colors. So just to kind of demonstrate those differences to you guys, I have 2 quick slides. Okay, subtractive color starts with a white background, in this case like my whiteboard. Okay, and you start adding colors to it. You'll add a yellow, you'll add some other colors on top of that, and you'll mix them together, and that's how you get your colors. Video starts with a black screen, which is why your computer screens are black and this TV is black. It then emits or throws light at you, and when it throws light at you, it's mixing red, green, and blue together in what's called the additive color space. These are pixels. The more pixels you have on a smaller screen, the better the resolution is. The brighter it seems, the more well put together it seems, the less broken apart. Okay, so we're working in the additive space, which means we're utilizing light. So you'll notice that my projector is not as bright as my TV. My TV is throwing light at you, so that's the reason why it seems brighter. My projector is projecting light on here, which is bouncing back at you. So it actually cuts the amount of light in half. That's the reason why it seems darker. Okay. Whew. Lots of stuff today. So we will pick this back up a little bit more on Tuesday. Tuesday, we're going to get into a couple of different things, and I hope to see you guys then.